Mike Papantonio, America's lawyer and host of Ring of Fire Radio. RingofFireRadio.com is on the line with us. Hey, Pap, how are you?
Tom, how are you today?
Great. So the Supreme Court is up to their weird old tricks, and has been for some time. I mean, back to Bush v. Gore. I guess you could take this back to Buckley. This court I've never seen such a partisan court in my life.
Yeah, well, this is a court that's become really just an extension of regressive, punitive Republican policy. No other way to put it. They're intent on keeping minorities and students and the elderly and the disabled away from the polls, as we just see in this newest ruling in Ohio, which tells us a lot about this court. The ruling in Ohio is more than just the ruling in Ohio.
Let's revisit what that ruling was so people know what we're talking about.
Yeah, what happened was that the court this week comes out and says that Ohio, 16 hours before people are supposed to start voting, they say that we're not going to interfere with the state's attempt to try to keep people away from the polls, it's a very restrictive law that was passed in Ohio, and an appellate court said, this is crazy, you can't do this. And they issued an injunction. The Supreme Court says, oh, no, we're not going to let that injunction stand. So it's not just about Ohio. There was no question in my mind or anyone following this court that this is how they were going to rule, and that's important because they've become almost comically predictable. The intent and political motivation of this court was made clear in this Ohio voting case. The dysfunctional, predictable majority has deprived thousands of Ohio residents the right to vote early. The court clearly understood that for many workers who want to vote, their only chance to cast a ballot is during this period that they call the Golden Week in Ohio, where voters can register and they can vote on the same day. And the court, you know what else they knew, Tom?
What's that?
Court knew that just last year, the Ohio Secretary of State, John Husted, admitted that voter suppression effort in Ohio was to keep minorities from voting. Came out of his mouth. And that is what the U.S. Supreme Court had in front of them. They knew it. They knew exactly what was going on here. But again, it's not just about Ohio. It's about this court in general. And that's what's the scary thing here. I was with a group of constitutional lawyers, probably the best in the country. Recently, and what we saw to a person is they had this solid agreement that the Supreme Court majorities become this freakish character of what the highest courts in emerging third world countries typically look like. And I thought that was an interesting thing because there wasn't any dispute about it. Used to be, the argument would be, oh no, they're using stare decisis, they're using precedent. But one litmus test for judging the dysfunctionality of a final appeals court, Tom, is the quality of predictability that they show in their decisions. And we have that here. For example, a final appellate court in a third world country that's maybe situated in a setting where you have a corporate or a military-dominated control. Well, they're predictably going to rule against average citizens. They're going to rule in favor of the industrialists who represent the money behind that government. They're going to predictably rule against environmental protections in favor of lawless polluters. And interestingly enough, and this is what I think is very interesting, if you take a look at these real dysfunctional courts, they'll take away and take away and take away, and then at the same time, every now and then, they'll throw out a few bones of appeasement on issues that might be gender rights issues, it might be reproductive health issues, but that's what we have here. We have a banana republic Supreme Court majority, Tom. There's no other way to put it.
It would be interesting to do an analysis. In the UK, the Supreme Court does not have the power of judicial review or judicial supremacy. In the Netherlands, UK doesn't have a constitution. Holland does have a constitution, and their constitution specifically prohibits their Supreme Court from having judicial review or judicial superiority, supremacy. Excuse me. In many European countries, in many developed countries, the Supreme Court cannot knock down laws. The Supreme Court cannot interfere in things like elections, like Bush v. Gore. It'd be fascinating to find out how frequently that's the case in third world countries. It might be worse than third world countries.
Well, the interesting thing is we're not in the dark about what Supreme Court majorities in third world countries looks like. So, I mean, I'm very comfortable telling you that this is a majority on the Supreme Court that's morphed the court into almost a clear blueprint of this of a vast majority of third world courts. I mean, we have the history books. We have it's in black and white. They're the ultimate appellate courts in places like that, such as South America, Africa, Middle East, Asia. That's what we've become. In fact, the chief judge, if you'll remember, of that court, Roberts, of our U.S. Supreme Court, not South Africa, which is a surprise, but just 2 weeks ago, he was pondering the question about why the public image of the Supreme Court is suffering so. As if the answer is not right in front of his nose. But I don't know if you saw the article. It was almost comical. He's wondering, well, why don't they like us? Why don't they trust us? Anytime a room, Tom, full of constitutional lawyers can predict what a court majority is going to rule within 100% accuracy, that alone is a symptom of failure. And everybody in the room that I was with, they could make these predictions. They could predict that there'll be continuing narrowing of voter access over time. They could with 100% accuracy, they could continue to expand the personhood of corporations. You know this court's going to do that 100% of the time. They'll continue to expand the rights of corporations to commit fraud against consumers, to escape criminal sentencing when they have committed those crimes. 100% of the time we're going to see that from this court. And they're going to narrow the rights of consumers' access to the court, to expand arbitration and replace court access with these things called arbitrative kind of relief. Right. And so I think it tells us an important story when it's not an issue of stare decisis. It's not an issue of precedent. We know that they're simply political vehicles. I call them Republican thugs looking out for other Republican thugs. That's what this court majority has become. And at times I get letters and they say, "How dare you say that about the Supreme Court?" Well, it's the truth. I'm a lawyer that I practice with issues that this court has to look at all the time. And every time I read one of their opinion and it's written by a majority, I know what they're going to do. There's no guesswork because they're simply politicians in black robes. So all I have to know is what's the political policy of the Republican Party. Right,
and they've essentially become an arm of the Republican Party, and the Republican Party has become an arm of the billionaires in corporate America. And it's just, I mean, the Financial Times article today: business puts its cash behind Republicans. It just lays it right out. You know, they're trying to get a Republican majority in the Senate. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce just committed $30 million to this. It's amazing. And then you look at the Republican obstruction in the United States, at the damage that it's done to this country.
Oh, God. It's endless. I did an interview this week. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to show this weekend on Free Speech TV. And the issue of obstructionism, if you just go down the list and we say, what have the, by the way, this obstruction has been enabled by the very Supreme Court we're talking about in a lot of ways. You've got Republicans who filibustered Obama's infrastructure bill. Okay, what did that do to our economy? Cost us billions in jobs. Republicans that they cut the path. They stood in the path of new highways and new bridges for infrastructure. They ended. You know, they got in the way of closing the path on ending offshoring of jobs. That was something that was proposed. It was killed by them. So all along the way, you see that obstruction by the Republican majority is taking place every day, but it's enabled by a court they know they can count on to support their obstruction.
Mike Papantonio, America's attorney, America's lawyer, ringofireradio.com.